This is Errol Marks from the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Joba in the mouth. We're here at Super Bowl 59. It is wonderful. Radio Row. I'm a little lost. There's a lot of people here, and we bumped into Amber Theoharis. What is up, Amber?
How's it going? Glad to be here.
You look good. You look
Thank
healthy.
you.
Everything is going well. You're working for Sirius Radio. You do so much right now with the post-game, the pre-game for the Raiders. So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing over here all week here at Radio Row.
Yeah, we've been doing the morning show over at Sirius XM. We have a big, you can see, it's just to our right. We have this huge set. We have about 6 or 7 sets over there. So I'm on the NFL radio set, Channel 88, and we've been doing the 9 to 11 local time AM show, airing it out. And the guests we've had have just been phenomenal. I mean, today we had Deion Sanders and Luke Kuechly. We've had Jaden Daniels. I mean, when I looked at our guest list, I was like, this is unbelievable. So SiriusXM's done a great job of coverage of the Super Bowl, and then doing some interviews for the Raiders as well, because a lot of teams will come here and have a presence at Media Row, even though their team is not in the Super Bowl, and the Raiders do it every single year. So we've been talking a little Pete Carroll and John Spytek and all of that. Pete
Carroll is a big name, and the Vegas, I always mess it up. I say Oakland because that's all I remember, the Oakland Raiders. When you speak, it doesn't roll off your tongue, Las Vegas Raiders. It's just Oakland. And Pete Carroll is, I think, a grand slam for them if he stays longer than 3 years, but he's the oldest coach right now in the NFL. And again, he's going back to a team that can't find a quarterback, a.k.a. the New York Jets, and just it's mishmash. It's put together, and you're trying to tie it together and hope it sticks. So what do you think Pete Carroll can do for this organization to make this organization a winning organization again?
Well, he did it with the Seattle Seahawks. If you go back to 09, 10, right around then when he was coming in with the Seattle Seahawks, and they were a mess, and they had no quarterback, and they had just paid a guy named Matt Flynn a bunch of money that was supposed to be the quarterback, and then he said, no, you know what, I'm going to go with this third-round guy named Russell Wilson. He ends up going to back-to-back Super Bowls, so obviously he knows how to identify and develop talent in the quarterback position. He also, going back to USC, obviously a defensive guy, developed one of the most legendary defenses of all time, the Legend of Boom, and he did that by drafting guys in the 5th round like Richard Sherman. So I think that he's going to be a big part of roster building as well, along with John Spytek, who, by the way, we hear great things about coming from the Buccaneers. And you can just look at the success he had building the roster with the Buccaneers. They weren't great, and then all of a sudden Tom Brady comes. They draft guys like Bucky Irving in the 7th round. I mean, I think the pair of those two is going to build a roster. And like you said, they have to be there for a little bit. But it starts with finding a quarterback.
There's a bunch of quarterbacks in this draft that are being talked about going real high, and then you have Jackson Dart playing well in the Senior Bowl, might slip into the 1st round. There are other guys. Who is that 3rd-round guy? Because you hear that no one wants to take a 2nd-round quarterback anymore, because if you go up into the 1st and take that same guy, you can get him for 2 more years technically.
Yeah.
So why would you get him in the 2nd? So then they want to take him in the 3rd. Are there guys like that this year for the 3rd round that could be someone like Russell Wilson? Because that is the reason why they were successful for Pete Carroll, because they only had to pay him a rookie contract at the quarterback position, and then they could pay their defensive stars, and that we saw what happened with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see, I don't know, it can go either way this year, because there's a lot of minds out there that do not think that Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders is that guy. They don't think. You're one of them? Okay. Yeah. So that's, I'm not
I've always been that.
I'm not a draft analyst. I'm not a college football analyst. I really don't have a strong opinion on that. But of all my friends, all my colleagues that are analysts, that is kind of, hey, maybe one of them will be there at 6 where the Raiders is, because, you have to fall in love with the guy to take him in the top 3. And, maybe the Giants or Cleveland or doesn't, and they could fall. Or you could see this rush to grab a quarterback, this desperation that we always see. And you see guys like who's the Jets quarterback? Why am I blanking on his name? The
Rodgers?
BYU.
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. Yeah, you grab a guy like Zach Wilson, right? Like,
he definitely
because
attacks.
we have the 2nd pick, and he's supposed to be the next best guy. And Mac Jones was in that draft, and he's supposed to be great, and they just all grabbing him, and it's like this frenzy, and it's not really your guy. Like, you really didn't compare your draft board this year to your draft board last year. Do you have him ranked as high as Jaden Daniels? Then he shouldn't be a 2nd pick. based on your evaluation. So it could go either way. We could see that desperation pick and they're gone, or we could see them kind of fall. I don't really know who's in the third round. I mean, look, you're going to have a guy like Jalen Milroe from Alabama there. I don't know where, people say, oh, his stock is rising, but he's a junior. He's a red shirt junior who hasn't really shown an act for being able to throw as well as he can run. So there will be quarterbacks, I think, that it might be even smart in this draft to get later in the third and maybe have a developmental project and then go get like a Kirk Cousins or a Russell Wilson or a bridge quarterback.
Because you're not the only team that needs a quarterback. I am been, a glutton for punishment this week, wearing all of my Giants gear in the face of all these Eagles fans.
I don't know why you're wearing
smoke.
it every day. It's getting me sick to my stomach.
Well, that's because,
New Yorkers do that.
That's how it is. I'm just letting everybody know.
I'm a
here
New
for all the
Yorker.
smoke.
You don't see me wearing my Jets jersey or my Jets hats or anything. Then again, it is the Jets. So
there's a reason for that. But
there's a reason for the Giants, too.
We were out, and you wouldn't believe this, Amber. We're out on Tuesday night, Wednesday night. People with Eagle stuff, not usually very friendly to Giants fans. You know what was happening? They were coming up to me and giving me hugs.
Wow, you're a charity case now.
It's not only a charity case. I was like, look.
It looks like a charity case. Look at that. Who's wearing a beanie here? I mean, seriously.
Dare to be different, dare to be great, Errol.
You dare to be different. There's no definite. There's no definitely.
I just basically told them, and we obviously there's so much security around. I didn't feel, they were like all these National Guardsmen, all these people, and we're staring, and as an Eagle fan comes up to me, and we're trying to promote our products. We have Ice Shaker from the Gronkowski brothers that we're promoting, doing Ice Shaker challenges, asking Eagles fans trivia questions, and they're giving me hugs and everything. I was like, all right, so who's on your team? Name 3 guys on your offensive line. Crickets. Crickets. So I didn't feel so bad after they kind of humiliated themselves.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it still feels pretty bad that the Giants decided this year that, we don't need to pay $13 million for a running back. Let's pay $6 million on a guy that's going to be benched by week 5, and $5 million on a third-string quarterback and bench him over Tommy DeVito, and $2 million on probably a backup guard. That's the price they let Saquon Barkley go for. How does this happen? And they still have a job.
Uncommon. That's not uncommon. I mean, look, every single running back that had an amazing year was let go. So Derrick Henry, the Titans didn't want to pay him. Jerry Jones didn't want to pay him. He ends up in Baltimore and has an amazing year. Josh Jacobs, the Raiders don't want to pay him. He was a league-leading rusher 2 years ago. They didn't want to pay him that year. They tag him. Then they don't want to pay him this year. It was a matter of like $4 to $6 million that they could not come to terms with. And he goes to the Packers, and he has a great year, and he leads them to the playoffs. Saquon Barkley is the same. So I think this is a year that perhaps running backs really made a comeback and really proved that you can't devalue them like we have the past several years, that if you want to go deep into the playoffs, not only do you need a premier quarterback, you need a run game.
Going back to the Raiders, Tom Brady, who's been a spokesman, now he's an owner over there, 10% owner of the Vegas Raiders. What do you think, with Tom Brady being there, is going to do to help drive players to come and play over there?
Well, I mean, why wouldn't you want to come to a place where the greatest of all time, who understands how to systematically win and win consistently, is? Like, why wouldn't you want that? I think that's what Tom Brady is going to do is, I just had a discussion with the president of the Chiefs about what really does it take to build a culture of a winning organization. There's very few teams that do it year after year after year. It's like the Steelers do it, the Ravens do it, the Chiefs do it. Philadelphia's done it the past, couple years, but there's very few that actually get it right. And I think Tom Brady, it was the Patriots for so long, so he knows how to build a system and build a culture within a building that works for winning. And so, especially if you're a quarterback, you're going to be able to pick his brain. He's going to bring in the best coaches or the best quarterback coaches or whoever to work with you. Why wouldn't you want to go play for the Raiders?
I am not a Tom Brady fan. As everybody knows, I'm a Jet fan. So every time I watch Tom Brady, it makes me want to hurl. So I understand why people have this love fest for him. He's won a ton of Super Bowls, 7 Super Bowls, won 6 with the Patriots. And I understand him wanting to go to ownership and do his thing. It just, to me, as a person that broadcasts and stuff like that, he works for Fox Sports. I mean, obviously the NFL has rules and regulations. If you're working with a team, I understand Tom Brady has the opportunity to go right now to the Super Bowl, be a broadcaster, be a play-by-play guy. Do you think, in my eyes, I think I could go either way on this. Do you think it's fair that Tom Brady is a broadcaster doing all this stuff and interacting with a team which he owns right now. Do you think that, the NFL should allow that? And why? Well, I mean, because obviously I read the rules. I see the regulations for the NFL and how it works. Do you think that it's doable for the NFL to allow that?
I do think it's doable. I just don't think he should cover Raiders games.
Yeah.
Because the only advantage or whatever that he would offer is that he has an opportunity in production meetings to talk to the head coach of the opposing team. And if you've ever sat in a network production meeting, those coaches kind of tell you everything, or the quarterback tells you everything. A lot of it's off the record, and it's background information. So, of course, you wouldn't want Tom Brady, who's with the Raiders, talking to Andy Reid, and Andy Reid telling him everything for a Fox broadcast. But he's really an owner of the Raiders, so he could just tell Pete Carroll everything they're going to do. So I think if you're just not covering your team, there really is no advantage that he could have. So it's not tainting the game or skewing the game in any
But when
way.
you sit down with those teams weeks before and they're giving you a game plan or information about what they can do and how they can do it, they can use that for the future. And in the future, Tom Brady could be sitting down with ownership or even the coaching staff and saying, listen, I sat down with this and I sat down with that guy, and they kind of gave us a game plan on how they're going to attack this. They can attack it in the future, reading different plays. Tom Brady is very good at seeing things and looking at it and calling it and reading it. That same thing with Tony Romo. I watch Tony Romo, and it's unbelievable. During plays, he's telling you, look at this, look at that, look at the safety come up. He's driving to the middle. He's bringing them up. He's telling you what they're doing before it even happens. So when I watch Tom Brady, when he does his broadcast, especially on Fox Sports, I wonder, like you say, you're sitting down with these coaches before the game. Doesn't that, if I was an owner or I was obviously a coach, would I want to feed Tom Brady information that, maybe in the future I'm going to play them in the playoffs, or I'll meet them in the regular season where they can use that information to a game plan?
Yeah, but that coach doesn't have to give Tom anything in a production meeting. There's no requirement.
I know.
So it's Tom's problem, right?
Right.
So I'm a reporter. I go around, I talk to people. They don't have to tell me anything, because if they think that I'm going to do something dirty against their team, there's plenty of coaches and players that don't trust reporters. Why wouldn't you trust, like you say, no, I don't, I'm going to give them surfacey stuff. Whenever Tom Brady's in a meeting, I'm going to do that. And it goes along. And Tom has to do his own research and watch film, and it can be a great analyst without. I do Westwood 1 broadcasts. We are the national radio, right? So Fox does the Super Bowl, we do the Super Bowl too. Right. We don't get a production meeting. We never do. Not our play-by-play. Kurt Warner and Kevin Harlan and myself do not get a production meeting. So we do our jobs great without a coach telling us, hey, like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. You still, as an analyst, have to do your own research. So it doesn't. So I think those coaches will just be like, if the crew's Tom Brady this week, I'm going to...
Hey, we're going to push the ball downfield, We're going to try to run inside, run some outside, and, hit the hashes and the outside, part of the field.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
What's the difference between Andy Reid telling Kurt Warner, hey, Kurt, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's kind of off the record. And, like, Andy could be like, well, Kurt is friends with Tom Brady. He could tell him exactly what he's going to do.
That's true.
Like, you're trusting that whoever you tell is going to kind of know. I mean, that's the elite of the elite, that broadcast level. You're not, like, telling the team. You're not going to do anything dirty. So I just think people are overthinking it too much.
But we're analysts, and you have to look at things in many different ways, because you're trying to find
the bottom line
something.
is, I could tell you exactly what Andy Reid is going to do in the Super Bowl.
I could
tell Nick Sirianni exactly what Andy Reid's going to do. Nick Sirianni still has to stop him, and then his players still have to execute.
That's
It's not going to be the tipping point in the game.
It's true. It's true. I agree with you. I'm just, when you're analyzing things, you're trying to find things to attack or bring up in conversation. Because you sit here, you could talk about the same friggin' thing everybody else talks about. You can sit here, you can sit there. They're all talking about the same stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to look towards the middle of it and say, hey, if this happens, or this guy's talking to this guy, or that guy, or she's talking, or you're talking to Tom Brady, and you're feeding information to Andy Reid. I mean, it's interesting because...
So it's the coach's choice. It comes down... It's not the league's job to protect coaches from Tom Brady. They are grown men. They can decide what they want to tell him and not tell him.
Interesting.
Amber,
Very interesting.
Amber, last night, the NFL Honors Awards were obviously last night, Hall of Fame inductions. I'm a little upset that Eli Manning didn't get in on the first ballot in his hometown. Thought that wasn't right. They did him like that. But I was more fascinated with the MVP vote, because this was the closest vote since 2003 when they were co-MVPs with Steve McNair and Peyton Manning. 27-25, 23, Josh Allen won out of the 50 votes of first place, and it was really close with all the other votes counted. My question to you is, Why do you think that happened? But when we had the first team All-Pro votes, Lamar Jackson clearly was made the first team All-Pro quarterback over Josh Allen.
Yeah, and what's funny is I think it's a lot of same voters.
It's the same people.
Yeah. Look, I don't know. I'm not a voter. I can't answer why people might have voted one way or another way. They also, though, had more time in between the All-Pro and the.
Is it like a forgiveness for getting screwed against the Chiefs on that fourth
I
Sean
think
play?
this is
Had a
what I
better
said on
season.
my show. I think the world just wants to give Josh Allen a hug right now. Like everybody just feels bad for him, and so maybe it was a consolation prize. No, I mean, look, you could argue. I don't have all the stats in front of me, but you could argue either one of them is the
Right.
MVP, and clearly it was split. To me, it was Lamar Jackson. What he did this year was pretty remarkable, but Josh Allen had a great year too. So it's subjective, and that's sometimes it's just split, and I don't know why it went a different way. Other than there was a couple more games in between.
I'm lost with it anyways because I think even though Joe Burrow did not go to the playoffs, he didn't lead his team, I thought he was the best quarterback in all of football this year, especially with the injuries that he dealt with and the numbers that he put
His
up.
numbers were ridiculous.
Were
He had to
ridiculous.
do the
5,000
most
yards.
work, probably. of any
Ridiculous.
quarterback.
He was ridiculous all season long, and he was comeback player of the year. In my eyes, he was up for more awards than any player, and to me, he should have won every single one of them. What he did this year, it's unbelievable. By the way, he looks like a child when he shaves. Looks like an
He was right
absolute.
behind us yesterday.
He looks like an 18-year-old kid. It's unbelievable. So for a second, I didn't even know who he was until I turned around. I'm like, oh, it's Joe Burrow. Is it? I couldn't even tell it was him. So. But it's pretty incredible what he did this year. So if you're looking at numbers, and that's what a lot of people do, is they judge people by the numbers. And then they say, well, it doesn't matter if they get into the playoffs. It's the most valuable player. Okay, the most valuable player to his team is Joe Burrow, in my eyes. So if Joe Burrow wasn't playing, where did they go? And I think all three quarterbacks
Is it the most valuable if you add value to a team that isn't valuable?
It's interesting.
It's an interesting argument. I mean, but that's,
If you
again.
don't win,
Yeah, you're not a
can't get that
valuable
award.
team. So yes,
well, if
I
your
could
defensive coordinator is
I
so
could
bad,
add value to a really crappy team.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes me the most valuable player in the NFL when there's people that added value to a winning team.
I'm glad they gave him something.
In baseball, we've seen it many, many times.
Yeah, but baseball's a
play-
much more numbers-driven sport.
Yeah, but numbers are numbers. You know what I mean? And that's the way they look at it. When they go to the Hall of Fame, what do they look at?
Some voters look at fourth quarter comebacks for MVP, things like that.
Yeah, it's
Drives.
interesting.
Yeah,
It is
there's
very
other
interesting.
stats. It's not just all passing yards and touchdowns.
It's very, very interesting. Anyways, Amber, we really appreciate it.
Thank
you
You're
so much,
fantastic.
Yeah,
Keep
thank
up-
you.
Keep doing the good work that you do for Sirius Radio, Vegas football, and we'll see you soon, man.
Thanks. Nice
Thank
meeting
so
you both.
much.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care.
Thank you.